Of all of the Sith to harbor rage in their hearts of the Jedi, few come close to that of Darth Maul. The mere sound of the word Jedi makes him sick, and yet it's one of the few things he remembered when he lost his mind. In the comics though, his hatred for the Jedi is explored all the more when he constantly fantasizes about hunting and killing them. Every time he tries to satiate his bloodlust with another kill, he is left ultimately disappointed and unsatisfied. His addiction to killing Jedi was like a drug, the strongest of spice, even when he finally got the opportunity to kill a Jedi Padawan in secret, a Jedi by the name of Eldra Catus, who by Maul's own admission gave him a glorious battle. He was still dissatisfied and wanted more combat with a Jedi Knight. No fix was good enough until he watched the Jedi Order crumble to ashes. What happened the day that the dark side though? Maul's very hatred for the Jedi is coded into his DNA. So what happened when the dark side decided to give him a vision? One where Maul was the Jedi. Well, join us today, my friends, as we open up a holocron and discover why seeing himself as a Jedi caused Maul to hate them so much more. Our story today comes from the canon Marvel Age of Republic series, as a young Maul is attempting to satiate his bloodlust. After locating and murdering a Force sensitive in the underbelly of Coruscant, Sidious ridiculed Maul for being too uncareful, and Sidious stated that Maul needed a lesson of patience. And because of this, the two took a trip to the world of Malachor. Maul had been to Malachor once before as a very young boy, and Palpatine had taken him there in order to give him a healthy dose of traumatizing him, taking a child to an extremely powerful dark side nexus so that he could experience it firsthand, and his hatred for the Jedi could be born. His first time there, he had seen all of the ashen statues of the Jedi and Sith from a war long ago. When he breathed in the ashes, he received a horrifying vision of the Jedi Crusaders, the Jedi who had massacred and hunted the Sith on that planet, before a superweapon went off and froze all of the Jedi and Sith present in ash. From that day on, Maul had retained a sense of absolute hatred for the Jedi, and desired to kill as many as he could with the blade, seeing the Sith as the victims who were hunted down by those more powerful. But now as an adult, Maul had returned with his master to the planet of nightmares. Maul inquired as to why they were there again, and Sidious simply instructed him to breathe in the ashes of their fallen brethren, and see what the dark side now wished to show him as an adult. Upon breathing in, Maul suddenly saw the face of a young Zabrak boy begging for help. Looking down at himself, Maul realized in shock and disgust that he was wearing the tan tunics of a Jedi Knight. Maul himself was this boy's Jedi savior. Perplexed, he turned to see what the boy was running from, as a giant predator was threatening his family and his homestead. Maul was not about saving the weak, but he was a hunter, so he obliged in killing the monster for his own sport and pleasure. Taking out his saber staff, Maul ignited it, only for the two sapphire blue blades to come fizzling outward, the crimson crystals having been replaced. He leapt atop the beast and finished with several precise cuts to its head, murdering it there instantly. But before the beast could hit the ground, Maul suddenly found himself at a dinner table. Surrounding him was the Zabrak family that he had just saved. They all referred to him as Master Jedi, and were praising him for his skills and his heroism. The young boy was talking up the Jedi as the best warriors in the galaxy, and the father began to invite Maul to stay the night and be warm in the presence of the family. But Maul was tossed into a rage. His eyes darted back and forth as his mind reeled. No, this is not who I am. I shouldn't be here. I am no Jedi. I am their destruction. With that final line, Maul's blue lightsaber ignited through the throat of the father, and his head went rolling off of the shoulders. Maul was then thrown into a frenzy, murdering each member of the Zabrak family that he had just saved before standing over the young boy who had once asked him for help, as he asked why. Suddenly again, Maul was back in his black tunic and wielding his red lightsaber. This is where he informed the young boy, because this is what the Jedi are. A lie told to a desperate galaxy. A lie I will end. With those words, he struck down the young boy and stood among the bodies of the innocent. But then, the vision changed, and he was surrounded by dark shadows wielding lightsabers of many colors. Terrifying wraiths that represented the Jedi, dozens of them, all surrounding Maul and poised to reap his very soul. Maul was alone in the middle of them, unable to defend himself before the vision itself concluded. Maul found himself back on Malachor with his master, cackling and clapping with pride. Sidious then asked his apprentice what he had learned, and Maul tells his master that he learned that rage fuels them, but it won't be enough to stop the Jedi on rage alone. They have numbers on their side, and the faith of the Innocents and the Republic. Sidious proceeds to explain that all of that will be taken care of in time, and he then goes on to teach his apprentice that although patience runs contrary to the passion of the Sith, if they act without a plan, they will never rise. He leaves Maul with a final lesson: to rule his anger and not let anger rule him. While this was Palpatine's exercise in patience, what it does do is tell us a lot about Maul. In the vision, Maul says something very important. He says that the Jedi are a lie. This was the biggest thing that enraged Maul. When he was young and taken from his home by Palpatine, he was put in a room and tortured into becoming a weapon of war. He was bred to become a literal warrior for the way of the Sith, and although he may have prayed for it, the Jedi never came for him. Never came to save the poor boy, despite the galaxy believing that the Jedi were always there to save them. As the young Zabrak boy in the vision had announced, that was not the case for the little Maul. When he watched as his home was ransacked by the Sith and was torn from his mother, Maul was used as a bargaining chip in order to save Dathomir from the dark side of the Sith, all of which happening right under the nose of the Jedi. If this wasn't enough, these so-called defenders of peace and justice have just as much blood on their hands as the Sith did. When Maul came to Malachor for the first time, he witnessed the terror of the Jedi Crusaders, the massacre that they committed. For the first time, we see the colorful lightsabers of the Order portrayed as something fearful rather than something hopeful. It's fascinating that unlike Palpatine and so many others, Maul doesn't hate the Jedi arbitrarily and doesn't have ideological differences with them to his very core. His hatred of them is something more personal. Palpatine grew up in a privileged life where he saw power and money as something to be exploited to gain more of it. He desired to rule and to be on top. He hated his father for being weak and a lapdog to the other powerful political leaders on Naboo. Palpatine hated the Jedi for very similar reasons. They had power, and yet they didn't seek to have more. Palpatine once stated to his master that should a Jedi attempt to rule an entire planet that did not have the Force, that they could, yet that they squander their gifts on defending the weak and the servitude of bureaucracy. This unwillingness to take advantage of power made Sidious sick to his stomach, and he vowed to use the Force to bring all he desired under his rule. Other Sith have hated the Jedi for choosing the wrong side of the Force, refusing to give in to their passion. Darth Maul, though, doesn't hate the Jedi for any of these reasons. He hated the Jedi for being hypocrites, similar to Dooku, without as much personal experience. Maul was on the receiving end of injustice his entire life. He hoped, he begged, and he pleaded. And the Jedi were the heroes that would never come for him. To Maul, they oppressed all with different views. The Night Sisters are kept weak because of the Jedi, and the Sith were destroyed by them. The Jedi bring swift end to conflicts, but are judge, jury, and executioner. For Maul, this cannot stand. He views it as especially grievous when the Jedi still champion themselves as defenders of the innocent. To Maul, the weak don't deserve to be protected by the nature of this weakness. The Zabrak assassin brings a more nuanced take on the strong shall rule and the weak will serve. Maul himself was once weak and was made to serve, but through time, through grit and agony, he climbed his way to power. To Maul, no one who isn't willing to do this deserves power at all, and are the weaklings that they deserve to be. This is why he murders the family. This is the servitude and the oppression. How can the Jedi defend the weak when they themselves oppress? Of course these viewpoints are twisted and wrong, but it's still fascinating that Maul wants to destroy this vision of the Jedi being these noble protectors, when to him, they are the heroes that never came, and committed massacres in the shadows, while still wanting to be the champions of the innocent. But as always, my friends, thank you so much for visiting our archives here today. We do hope you enjoyed today's video, and may the Force be with you.